The story begins by asking if you want to experience a realistic second life. The game, God of the Imperial Kingdom, can perfectly simulate life in the virtual world. There you can embark on extremely dangerous adventures and battles. Besides experiencing the freedom of flight, you can also become a bald guy with a shiny head and marry an attractive girl. The game's headset is so good that those who use it even improve their health. At this moment, our protagonist in a wheelchair is watching about the game on TV. They say a new world will open its doors for those who start playing, and all our guy hopes for is that all those promises are true. His name is Luke, and he lives with his sister. His future was already secured with an excellent job and salary that he had. However, an accident completely changed his life. The impact even left the mark of Mickey. Because of this, his sister spent everything she had just to save his life. The problem is that in the end, he can no longer walk and has become a burden to the family. Everyone feels sorry for his sister because, basically, her future is taking care of a disabled person. Hearing these things obviously didn't do any good for the guy's mental state. He never wanted to be a burden to his family. Just when he was thinking of logging off, that's when he saw the ad for this game. And what caught his attention the most is that due to neural healing, some people were even walking again. Even people who had lost the ability managed to recover 100%. So he decided not to log off and decided to give this new thing a chance. The scene changes to his house. His sister left food and sent him a message saying she would be working some overtime, so he didn't need to wait up for her. He had almost no money, and she still had to go into debt just to buy this second-rate headset. All he hopes is that this won't disappoint him. As soon as the game starts, a fully digital waifu appears welcoming our guy and tells him to enter his nickname. It seems our guy already came into this guns blazing, and he enters the name only I am the Savage. She then tells him that the first place he will spawn is the mortal realm, and tells him to take advantage of everything in that place, and that's when he wonders why his character is like this. He looks down and sees two little paws, and he hadn't heard about anything like this in this game. As far as he knows, there was supposed to be some kind of customization. So, why does he have wolf claws? If the point of the game was to kill a bunch of monsters, why did he become a savage beast? He curses the heavens and tells it to show him this garbage system. That's when he sees his name, only I am Savage, with the class of a weak werewolf. The only talent he has is a werewolf bloodline that slightly increases his critical hit chance. Our guy is finished. Not only is he very weak, but he's also a savage beast. However, that's when he remembers an important detail. He was standing and moving his legs just as if they were his real body, and at that moment, he breaks into a run. The guy has so much fun he even lets out a howl. That's when someone points and says there's a savage beast over there to hunt. What a surprise. Just as I thought, some dangerous adventurers, but he didn't realize he was the one in danger. The girls comment that the werewolf is ugly. Seriously, the poor guy is done for. He was called ugly by the first player he saw, but he says that at least the clothes in this game aren't so ugly. However, the girls are already rushing in, saying they know a werewolf claw sells for 300 coins. One of them gets ready to strike Luchin, who still doesn't understand what's happening. He, however, decides to defend himself and deals 3 damage to her. At that moment, all the girls surround him and start attacking our boy, who is in a 4-on-1 fight. However, he knows he's in the werewolf base, so they should be coming to help him soon. With that, the pack begins to close in on the girls, and they realize that they are surrounded and have put themselves in a risky situation. At that moment, the poor girls are beaten down and Luchin is just waiting for the right moment to get a kill. As soon as one is low on health, he strikes her in the back, kills a level 1 player, and with that gets some experience and a few items. He soon gets excited when he sees that being a wild beast allows him to earn money by killing players, and so he takes advantage of them being weakened and starts farming the girls. The best part is that he's getting a bunch of items that they had bought, so he won't even have to spend his own money. One thing he notices, however, is that his reputation doesn't seem to be increasing. Apparently, he can't rank up, but he can still increase his stats and level up. He knows, however, that people are only supposed to get talents after choosing a class, but he, as a wild beast, not only already has a talent, but also deals more damage than the other players. Maybe being a wild creature isn't so bad after all, and he decides to test it on a friend. He then gives him a smack on the head to see if he'll be attacked by the other werewolves. The poor guys run off and he goes on a farming frenzy. He runs a little low on mana and drinks the girl's potion. And with that, he continues killing his own kind and, without hesitation, has betrayed his own race. The clever guy not only manages to farm players, but also monsters, and decides it's time to make his own race extinct. 15 minutes later, he has increased his stats quite a bit and is all excited, saying he never expected this game to be so realistic until someone shouts that they found a pervert. Luchin looks back and is startled. This time, it's a really perverted and dangerous guy. The guy in front says it's amazing that when you hit someone with low health, their clothes start to fall apart. The girl says it's just a game and tells them to stop. From the outside, her secretary tells her that she'd better get out of the game. However, she says she can't because she'll get a penalty. She signed a contract to promote this game, so she can't give up so easily. The guy says that this game uses people's real bodies and asks her if she's actually real. However, that's when a little wolf approaches, and Luchin hits the guy on the back of the neck. He turns to see what it is and wonders why a werewolf is attacking him like that. At that moment, the rest of the group gives the order to eliminate that creature. However, Luchin strikes another one in the head, who wonders how a level 1 creature can be so strong. Obviously, he's abusing his talent and using mana potions to recover. This way, killing these newbies isn't difficult at all. He finishes off the guys, and the only problem is that they didn't have anything valuable. The girl's name is Ling Chi, and she wonders why a werewolf is helping her. She approaches and hands him some potions, saying that she wanted to thank him. The girl made the right decision, because he was already planning to kill her too. He thanks her and takes them, and she's left confused because this werewolf can actually talk. Just then, the secretary asks her how the game is going and tells her the promotion is about to start. She says she understands and that she'll go out to prepare. Ling is already running through the forest. She knows she's near the newbie zone if she doesn't want to become the target of a larger group. For now, she'll stay away from there and focus on killing other creatures. How do you become a beast? As soon as he entered the game, he has no idea how things are going. So, he decides to take a look at the promotional video. In it, he sees Ling Chi making an announcement about how the game has just begun and the newbie zone already has over 8,000 players. He had no idea she was so famous and that there were so many players and that, in short, the wildlife is much better, since he can keep killing without anyone bothering him and, with that, he goes out to hunt his own kind once more. Killing these creatures has allowed him to collect 10 talent items and he will finally level up to level 2. Now his critical chance increases from 3 to 6%. He's very happy, saying this isn't bad at all, and decides to see what else he can upgrade. Now, instead of needing 10 items, he'll need 100. He already knows that means he'll have to find higher level creatures so he doesn't have to kill so many weak ones. He finds more level 1 werewolves and tears them apart with ease. Finally, his normal level reaches 2 and he gains a little in each stat. The problem is that he hasn't gotten a talent increase or any items. That means he needs to kill stronger things. Suddenly, he sees a very muscular werewolf and he already knows that's what he needs. He decides to try his luck since, even though the guy is bigger than him, he's still 1 level higher. With that, he deals 8 damage. But the guy deals 12. He already realizes it's not going to be that easy. The guy keeps using potions and fighting the creature for 5 minutes. Finally, he kills it. He receives an item to upgrade talent and over 20 experience points. Obviously, he knows he only managed it because he had that mountain of potions from the players, but now he's excited because he knows exactly how he's going to upgrade his talents. Suddenly, a club appears in his hand. It's a gray quality item, which is pretty bad, but it's still better than the level 0 one he had. He remembers the girls mentioned something about selling it for 300 Suan and decides to take a look. He doesn't see many in the shop and decides to put it up for sale for $35. Since the game just started, he knows that he can't make much money with it. He closes the system and wants to go back to hunting. However, the window instantly opens with a new message. The club had been sold and he was about to receive the money. So, he says he'll check the messages on his phone. The system shows that he really received the money from the sale. He gets excited because he'll finally no longer be the loser brother. It seems like everyone was right and this is a golden opportunity. At that very moment, he obviously goes back to hunting and the werewolf's greatest enemy doesn't stop killing his own kind. 20 minutes later, he's already exhausted from hunting, has reached level 3, and his stats have improved. The problem is that now those level 1 creatures are no longer giving him any experience or items, which means it's time to move on to the level 2 ones. He already knows where each creature is spawning, and as soon as they appear, he gets there to kill them. He takes a club hit that deals 9 damage and finds it strange, because that level 2 beast is weaker than the big level 1 he killed. It's then that he realizes this creature hits much faster. It seems this creature focuses on agility, but that doesn't matter to him, since he can beat them with ease. With that, he easily kills the level 1 creatures and also manages to kill 2 level 2 ones at the same time. 40 minutes later, he's making a pile and opens his stats window to see how he's doing. His talent has leveled up once again, and now he has a 10% critical hit chance, which isn't bad at all, especially considering that other players don't even have a talent yet. Also, every time he evolves, he can choose a stat in strength, agility, or more endurance. For now, he's only choosing strength, since it's very easy to land attacks, and as soon as he takes that stat, he notices his body has changed a bit. The strange thing is that every time he chooses a stat, he gets an additional name in front and now it's quite long. After hunting for a while, he decides to sell the 5 clubs for $40 each. He's also already at level 4, so it's time to advance further into this forest. Once again, he receives a message. Everything he listed has sold instantly, making him earn more than 20,000 from 1 minute to the next. At that moment, he gets excited saying he's going to buy new clothes for his sister. One of the people who bought that club was Lynchy. What he found strange was why that one savage had so many for sale. He opens the player window for the region, and at that moment there's no one with that name. Even searching the entire top 500, he can't find him and comes to the conclusion that he's actually using another account to transfer the items for sale. Just then, his secretary tells him to turn on the live stream. The live stream shows that the level 1 werewolf region is so crowded that it's hard to hunt anything. Everyone is complaining that they've been in the game for 2 hours and can't get out of this beginner area. The girl even says there are so many guys around that she's going to get pregnant just from being crushed. Lynchy gives advice on the stream to buy a club to help defeat the werewolves faster and get out of that place. Now he understands why that item is selling like hotcakes. However, for him, this is perfect. It's full of level 4 beasts, and he's going to farm them all. With that, he continues to acquire talent, points, and experience. His evolution is going so well that even creatures of a higher level aren't proving that difficult, and he easily defeats a level 5 agile werewolf. At that moment, he receives another new club and decides to take a look at it. But this time it's an S rank 1, full of stats. It's not very strong because it's a beginner's item, but it's still very rare considering the amount of power it provides. It's basically a steal for a level 1 player. The question that arises is, how much should he sell it for? He then decides to check the forum for some opinions. With that, he describes the stats and asks how much he should sell it for. Obviously, everyone says it's a lie or that he should sell it for $1 million because it doesn't even exist. Lewin already realizes that no one is helping him at all, but then he stops to think that it's the first day and only today will that item have any value. He then decides to create an auction where people can bid starting from 1,000, or if they want to buy it instantly for 18,800. With that, he closes the window and imagines that maybe in half an hour it should be sold. A girl already comments about seeing a club for sale for 1. Meanwhile, Lewin is farming and getting more items. The problem is that it's getting hard to find strong mobs and he decides to take a look around. Suddenly, he gets all excited and says that this really looks impressive. A werewolf with exceptional agility at level 6. He gets hyped up, saying that something good will surely drop and now the exchange of damage is much more balanced. However, with the increased attack and the critical talent, he manages to destroy the creature. Unlike the others, this one gave him 2 items to increase his talent. The moon was already in the sky and he was a werewolf with exceptional agility and strength. Excited about how much he has evolved on the first day, he decides to take a look at his stats. The werewolf bloodline was already at level 3 with a 14% critical chance. The only problem is that his name is so long that he can't even hide behind a tree without it sticking out on the sides. However, he's tired, the day has been productive and it's time to log off for a bit. He has gotten 9 more normal clubs and decides to sell each one for 300. He's anxious to tell Luigi that he's making money now and will be able to support the family. Finally, he's back and the first thing he notices is that his arm feels different, as if some of his senses were returning. Apparently, today's purchase was really worth it. That's when he hears the door open once more. She had worked late. She comes in all tired, saying she was a little late. She says she earned a lot of money and he asks why she smells like alcohol. She says it was a celebration. It seems her company is merging with a company from the Imperial Kingdom of the Gods and, apparently, she was appointed as a department head and now she's going to earn much more. She sits on his lap and he tells her to get off, that she's going crazy. That's when, as always, it's revealed the green light. They aren't real siblings. Lewin says that's why they should take care of each other. However, she replies that she doesn't care, since she decided to take care of him forever. Our suffocated boy can't say anything. That's harassment, man. The guy is paraplegic and can only lie there. She says the game is becoming famous and that a lot of people are going to get rich and, as one of the people involved in this project, she's going to make a lot of money, taking care of our boy. Lewin tries to explain to her that he's doing well in the game and that maybe she doesn't need to try so hard. However, she was drunk and had already fallen asleep. He figures that if she's involved in the game's project, maybe he could play with her or, better yet, maybe she knows secrets that no one else does. The next day, he wakes up to a message from her saying she left early in the morning. Lewin just thinks that she's really grown up a lot and, upon entering the game, he gets excited because he's surely made more than $500. Overnight, Ling Chi is live streaming, saying that the game is very difficult and she has only managed to reach level 3. Most of the strong players are already at level 5 and she's just falling further behind thanks to that club. Then, she comments that the player who is selling those clubs must be someone from the beta who already knows the secrets. Lewin thinks she's very nice and that he should give her some money later, since she's the reason he's selling so much. As he was watching the live stream, he decides to donate 66 yuan as a thank you. At that moment, she realizes that the player she was talking about was watching her stream. Meanwhile, our boy was still wiping out the wolves as usual. He had already become a level 7 jackal with exceptional talents. The only problem is that, as always, his name just keeps getting longer. He's starting to think it will soon be visible from 800 meters away. However, that's when he sees an elite creature with an imposing name, the leader of the Jackalmen named Zakaz. The problem is, he's accompanied by 10 elite creatures and Lou knows he can't beat them alone. He's trying to think of a plan as quickly as possible. All he has in storage are 17 clubs that are useless for now. It's then that he remembers a detail. In the reputation shop, there's an orders recruitment shield. Basically, you can summon a creature, but it has to be weaker than you. If it dies, no one gets experience, but you get the shield. To recruit, you must fight in a one-on-one and defeat the creature without anyone interfering. It seems strange to him that the item's name has a square border, but it's only recruiting one. However, since it only costs 10 reputation, he decides to give it a try. That's when he sees that upgrading the item's quality will cost 500 points. With no other option, because he needs to get stronger, he decides to sell everything he has for reputation. With that, he manages to upgrade the item to level 3. At that moment, he activates it and does the recruitment test, which basically consists of defeating the creatures. Obviously, he beats them easily. Now he has 3 Jackalman servants, but the critters are pretty weak. He spends some of his attribute points and gives them the clubs he has to make them stronger. With that, his whole party starts hunting other Jackalmen. I don't even know who's who here anymore, but our boy feels like a captain, ordering the critters to attack. However, one of them hit a mini-boss that dealt more than 50 damage. Our boy orders the other 2 to help distract the boss and, with the help of his army, he manages to kill the boss. After a lot of effort and with everyone at low health, they finally defeat it and get 3 fragments. To improve his talent, a level 5 shoulder armor, a gray level 1 chestplate, and a green quality crushing mace. Obviously, he gets excited, since it's the first non-gray item he's seen. Compared to the others, the number of attributes is much higher. Now he doesn't know whether to sell it or use it, and he starts giving orders to his wolves to hunt others nearby. While one of his werewolves is recovering, he decides to take a look at the live streams. Lingxi is talking about reaching level 10 and unlocking professions for players, which makes the game much more fun. However, her friends around her say that she's thinking too far ahead, especially since the strongest players are still at level 5. Lingxi replies that they should form a guild to recruit more members and level up faster. Several have already been formed under the names of famous companies. Savage Solo says that this game is getting more incredible by the minute. 8 hours later, someone is waking him up. He realizes it took 8 hours for the werewolf that died in the fight to resurrect and gets a little scared. After a while, he decides it's time to buy new equipment, prepare, and face that monster. However, that's when he realizes he's at level 8. He asks the werewolves if they were hunting the whole time while he was sleeping. He equips everything, saying that this was really the best choice. Now that he has all the items, that monster is no longer a threat. The scene changes to the defeated monster, and it was much easier than he thought. Additionally, he got several items. He takes a look at his summon's inventory to see if they're carrying anything. The wolves had already collected more than 20 maces while he was sleeping. Obviously, since a lot of people are leveling up, these items are losing value, but he can still make a good amount of money. The question that arises is, for how much should he sell that level 5 green mace? He puts it up in the shop and instantly gets a sale notification, seeing that he can still make a profit. He sends everyone to keep killing, checks the forum, and sees that they're already starting to comment about him. Everyone wants to know who this Savage Solo guy is. Taking advantage of the conversation, he asks how much they think a green item is worth. One guy says it could be around 5,000, while the others are just talking nonsense. So, he creates an auction starting at 1,000 with a buyout of 5,000. At that moment, one of her friends calls Lingxi and tells her to look at the shop. They see it's from the same person as before, and the secretary suggests that she should try to add that guy as a friend. Lingxi feels a little embarrassed, but says that maybe it's a good idea, and with that, she tells her to keep an eye out and to let her know as soon as that guy enters the live stream, because she's going to try to add him as a friend. Meanwhile, Leon is tearing through wolves trying to get to level 9. 2.5 hours later, he makes it, but it costs him 50,000 experience points. From level 9 to 10, he's going to need 100,000, which seems almost insane to him. But his attack has already reached 60, and he has more than 150 health, and that's when he sees his wolves fallen on the ground and an item in the middle of them. He gets closer and sees that it was 15 healing potions. However, he then notices a trail of potions leading towards the bushes. He doesn't even worry and picks them all up, thinking he's going to make a good profit. That's when he runs into some players who are convinced they found the boss of that area. One of them says to be careful of the shoulder armor and the weapon in its hand. It must be very strong. Our guy wonders if Rhyme looks like a boss. However, before he can finish the thought, the players are already coming at him saying they're going to make a huge profit. The girl asks if he's sure it's the boss, and he says yes, if the savage can do it, so can they. With that, he charges forward saying not to be afraid and hits him on the head, dealing 1 HP of damage. The guy is a bit confused, saying that with his strength, that shouldn't happen. The whole party starts to wonder how many times they'll have to hit this boss to kill it. A very kind girl named Ba Ruyu tells them to calm down because they have plenty of potions. They decide to keep hitting it, hoping it will eventually die. Our guy is just standing there, realizing that this seems to be the minimum amount of damage someone can deal. He just doesn't understand why they're so motivated, thinking they can beat him like this. However, since they think he's a monster, he'll have to play the part. At that moment, he throws the first punch that takes 52 health from the first guy. A strike to the ribs takes away 100, and the guy can't believe it. He's already thrown to the side and drinks a potion. The party starts to formulate a plan. Since each potion recovers 10 health over 10 seconds, they decide to send whoever has full health to the front, while those who have lost health recover. However, one swing of the club sends them all running. The girl desperately tells the captain that it's not going to work. However, Lewin says it's too late and that no one is getting out of there, and with that, he begins to crush them all. The clever guy got 27 potions just from that girl. Now that everyone has experienced his strength, no one else will bother him and he can continue farming alone. The scene changes to a meeting at a company called Hang Chen Technology. It seems everyone there was playing that game and spending money, but they were all destroyed by our wolf. However, the boss says that no one should lose hope, because now they just need to get stronger and then kill that boss. What he wants to know is how the only savage killed that guy. There were so many notifications that his head is already starting to hurt, but he's excited, since he has over $3,500 in the bank. Plus, he's receiving several emails from people who want him to join their guild or sell an item. He replies to everyone that he's not going to add any friends and that when he's going to sell something, he'll send a message. He closes the window because it's time to start leveling up again. 8 hours later, he finally reached level 10 and obtained 28 clubs. His reputation as a monster has already reached 38, but he didn't manage to upgrade his bloodline. He sees that in the reputation shop there's now a skins tab and wonders if he can change his appearance. However, the only available skin is the werewolf one. This skin gives a quest where if you kill several werewolves, you can obtain the bloodline. Lewin wonders if he could combine the two into one or, for example, if he could transform into another monster, or what's most interesting to him would be transforming into a human. He clicks on the martial arts icon and sees that he can now receive something called human form that strengthens attack and defense. One of them requires him to meditate for a while to receive that attribute, and the other needs 1,000 recovery points and to kill wild monsters to obtain the powers they have. After some time cultivating, he finally unleashes the power of mana. Now it's time to list more items and put things up for auction. Meanwhile, the girls are exhausted because it's going to take them a long time to reach level 7. That's when the secretary says that the only savage has entered the live stream with the ID 9527. She tells everyone that the live stream is amazing and that she's going to give a gift to someone at random. Obviously, the number 9527 is the winner. The guy is astonished, saying that this is an incredible coincidence. However, when she sends him a friend request to give him the item, he says to give it to another fan. She tells him that he must accept his destiny, but he says he's not very interested. He's already asking what she wants, so he can refuse the item. While she says she wants to give it to him, she asks that the only thing she wants is a picture of him using the club in his hand. Our guy already imagines that picture would be terrifying. The problem is that this girl seems nice and he wants to help her out a bit. He tells her he'll accept the gift, but he won't take the picture, and she says that's fine. So, she adds the only savage as a friend and then announces to everyone on the live stream that the only savage is the first person to reach level 10 and enter the main city. Our guy feels a little embarrassed about keeping the reward and thinks about removing her from his friends list. At least, she mentioned that the path to the main city has opened, so he should find new creatures. With that, he arrives at the poisonous mist forest, and the system notifies him that he has left the starting area. He's excited, wondering if he should run or face everything he finds there. That's when something catches his attention. As soon as he enters, he's attacked by a bunch of spiders and a level 9 boss. He decides to face her and have his companions deal with the smaller ones. The problem is that he's poisoned. However, at least the damage isn't that high. 3 minutes later, he had finished with everything in that region and even received a white mist bracelet. It's part of a set of equipment that increasingly boosts his protection against poison. This place is really full of poisonous things, and before he can leave the area, he's already being attacked again. 5 minutes later, he's still standing in the same spot. He kills the creatures, but they keep respawning, and the worst part is that his companions aren't recovering. In the next scene, he's already in his room, saying it was a very tiring day and that he barely managed to get out of that place. That's when he realizes that his arm, which could barely move before, now seemed to be a little more agile. His finger was still a little stiff, but that was already great progress. Then, he gets a call from his sister, who says that she won't be able to come home right now. Apparently, her company's team has to get used to the game, and she will have to stay there so that everyone can reach level 6. Our guy, however, tells her not to worry, that he has a surprise for her when she gets home. She wants to know what it is, but he tells her he'll only say when she's back. Our guy is all happy there. Maybe he'll be 100% healed soon. The next day, he was facing the spiders again, and the problem hadn't disappeared. Their numbers seemed almost infinite, and he couldn't make any progress in the forest. One of his subordinates was even killed. A while later, 2 others were defeated, and he was on the run, chugging potions to stay alive. After that, he went back and destroyed the spiders that killed his friends. However, he was already out of the area, crying over the loss of his companions. He decided he would have to spend all his reputation to buy items and strengthen everyone so they could return to that place. The next day, they were all there destroying those spiders. This time, he finally found the real elite boss, but before he could do anything, she was already rushing toward him. However, he was very well equipped and felt confident. Half an hour later, they finally managed to defeat her. With that, she was defeated and he received 2 more items from that set. Truly, a level 10 boss did not disappoint with the reward. He received the gloves from that set, which also increased poison resistance and, obviously, the necklace. And he had to equip all of it. The guy was looking all stylish, saying that now it was easier than ever to farm elite creatures. The problem was that, as always, the creatures respawned extremely quickly. But now that he was stronger, that was good news, since he would get a lot more items. With that, he jumped right against the spiders. A while later, his name was even bigger than usual and his talent had increased. He now had a 19% critical chance for having killed over 1,000 spiders. He could buy their talent to apply poison. Now, all his attacks reduced the target's health by 1% per second for 5 seconds. He decided to upgrade that talent because it would be useful against creatures with a lot of health, and he started spending more reputation to get it to level 3. With that, the talent now drained 2.5% of their health. However, he looked a bit strange now, with half his body being a werewolf and the other half a spider. The advantage was that he was now much faster in terms of movement, but he really needed a skin to change that ridiculous appearance. It had been a productive day, and it was time to log out of there. Again, the people who always buy his items were sad because he didn't put anything up for sale today. He just didn't feel like it. He'll only put the poison resistance items up for sale when people reach that region. That's when he sees that people are already in the werewolf boss region, so they'll arrive soon at the forest. Inside the game, people are finishing off that boss, but Lin-Chi tells everyone to be careful, encouraging the party, saying that if they kill that creature, they'll be the strongest party on the server. But then the secretary tells him to look to the side. There was a giant monster saying it came to save the Zakas. People didn't know why that monster's name was so big and why it was so fast. They tried to strategize on how to protect themselves and use some potions. However, one guy already jumped in and said the huge name was funny. It's just a shame that it was going to die so easily. Obviously, the attack dealt only 1 damage. The 2 girls already saw that it had over 2,000 health, so they didn't stand a chance. But the guys were still hyped up, denying it, would panic, thinking it must just be a tank until they took a hit right in the chest. An attack with the spider's leg dealt 60 damage and also applied poison. The guys were in shock. Their friend who had 250 health disappeared in an instant. Luen just shouted and asked what they were waiting for. And then the fight began with everyone being thrown into the air. The guys still wanted to face it, but their friends were already ready to give up and flee from that place. Ling-Chi was nearby, and it was a shame, but Lun wasn't going to let her get out alive. He dealt her a 94 damage hit. The poor girl was losing another 60 due to the continuous poison. Our guy was all excited. He had gotten a bunch of potions. Now that all the players had been scared away, he had bought himself some more time to keep evolving. Meanwhile, in the city, everyone was talking about how that creature was terrifying. They couldn't understand how the strongest party on the server was wiped out in a few minutes. Because of that, some were so discouraged they wanted to quit the game. Everyone was saying that Ling should try to talk to the guy who reached level 10 and ask him how he killed that thing. She didn't want to, but everyone was calling her goddess, begging her. At that moment, he received a message from Ling-Chi asking him exactly how to kill the Zakas. Luen's plan was to monopolize the forest and then sell a bunch of poison protection items when the region opened up. So he told her that the boss doesn't always appear and that they should try tomorrow. She got excited and thanked him. With that, Luen prepared to go back to farming and even kill the Zakas itself the next day. It was time to go deeper into the forest. No one on the server knew what awaited them further in, and he came face to face with a level 10 python. His minions were just running away, and Luen ordered them to start fighting. He realized that only those he had equipped with anti-venom items were managing to survive. The problem was that, just like with the spiders, there were many snakes, and no matter how many they killed, it didn't seem to reduce their numbers. The lucky thing was that the bunch of players had also left behind a ton of potions. 2 hours later, they were exhausted, but they were still fighting the snakes. With that, Lewin went home and went to sleep. The next day, when he woke up, he returned to the forest and, curiously, his wolves had continued hunting instead of logging out, and because of that, they all reached level 9. Once again, he was impressed that these minions were better than he expected. The creatures were so smart that they even knew how to take turns to recover health. That was perfect, since he didn't have to worry about the creature's level, as they would level up while he slept. The most interesting thing is that he now had enough reputation to buy the snake's bloodline. The snake's talent also applies a poison that increases as the person walks. He immediately levels it up as high as he can, bringing it to 2.5% of their health and increasing every time the person takes a step. Oh my god, but his character is also turning into an abomination. He realizes that he's going down the path of ugliness, but the important thing is to become stronger. One attack deals 93 damage and already applies both poisons, one that lasts 5 seconds and the other that lasts 60 seconds, and it increases damage as the target moves. He says they're going to go out hunting together throughout the forest, and with that, he and the werewolves continue farming a bit more. They finally managed to get out, or rather, they found something terrifying. The mistress of the round spiders, named Evelyn, sire, and she's a level 12 boss and the queen of poison. Luchin already knows that means she has a guaranteed item drop, but it's not going to be easy at all. He decides to take the risk and take advantage of the fact that there are no other monsters nearby. However, she gives him a lick and then spits out a shower of webs. He and all his minions are immobilized. Luchin frees himself easily, but the poor guys are all trapped. At least being free, he can go after her and starts dealing a ton of damage and applying poison. Although he's dealing more damage per second than she has way more HP, and the worst part is that she's decreasing his movement and attack speed. The advantage he has is that he can still escape and let the poison consume her. Meanwhile, the werewolves freed themselves and came back to help, but once again she prepared herself, and when he looked back, she had immobilized them again. Our guy already realized that the skill's effect ends as soon as they return, so he's basically alone. The only option is to go for a war of attrition. Half an hour later, he finally killed her and received a ton of items, 2 4-star materials, a green rarity piece of equipment, and a recipe for a blue rarity item. The item from the recipe is a superior blue helmet with a ton of stats. Additionally, the armor provides a lot of defense and a bunch of skills. He has no idea how much he could sell all of that for. Now that he knows she drops a blue item, he decides the best move is to stay in the forest and kill her several times. Half an hour later, she respawns, and he's surprised that the respawn time is much faster than he thought, and he immediately attacks her again to get more stuff. 10 hours pass, Luchin is exhausted, but he has obtained a massive amount of poison-resistant sets. Soon, players will start suffering from the poison in the forest, and that's when he's going to profit. The reputation set for that area costs 4 mudos, which is quite expensive, but they're very strong, and he's already seeing that people in the chat are desperate because they're getting wrecked in that area. He notices that no one has mentioned the boss, so apparently they're still in the first or second part. He says that he's going to check out that cute girl's livestream and try to make a little profit. The poor girl is getting destroyed by the spiders, saying she's going to die again. Once again, she's back in the city, commenting that it seems they're going to need a lot of M's to defend against those poisons, but they don't know where to get them until she gets the idea to ask the only person who knows the secrets of this game. She sends a message to Luchin, asking him if he has some M's to help with poison resistance. Obviously, our guy has a lot. He tells her he has a full set, and she's in shock. She says she wants to buy a complete set, and he asks her, how many? She gets even more freaked out by him asking how many. The people watching don't want to believe that he really has more than one complete set to sell, and to test if it's true, she asks if she could buy 3 sets. Luchin simply tells her to open a trade room and send her the password. Meanwhile, she still can't believe that Renty has all of that. However, he places the 3 sets in the trade window and receives 21,000 gold. At that moment, she equips everything and feels powerful, saying that now she can easily survive in the forest. Obviously, our guy receives 99 messages from people interested in buying the set. So, he replies that he's going to hold an auction to maximize his profits. He decides to buy a female avatar just to host it without anyone knowing who he is. 10 minutes later, in a live event, he equips that attractive girl skin to run the auction, obviously, to make the most money. Even though it's a bit embarrassing to have to play like this, he does it all for the money. The first item is a spider set along with a helmet. People start raising their bids, and the first item sells for $1,400. Luchin gets excited, saying he's making a fortune. The third set sells for $9,800. What's more, everyone is amazed by the number of sets he has to sell. So, he says it's time to sell the sets together, so the next sale will be for 3 complete sets. Immediately, many people start to place bids. The price is already at 45,000 yen, and he asks if anyone wants to raise it. One guy says he loves the host and even blows a kiss. With that, the 3 sets are sold for $6,500. He announces a similar sale once more, and a guy offers another 45,000 yen. People are scared because that guy seems to be monopolizing everything, and another decides to counter him by offering 47,000. People from other guilds don't want to be left behind and offer 50,000. The one winning here is our guy, who says anyone can raise the bid. The sets are starting to run out, and people are competing fiercely until someone says they'll pay 90,000. Now, everyone is devastated because the last 5 sets have been sold. Then, Lin says that today's auction was incredible and drops a hint that after the part where they are in the forest, there will be something even more terrifying. People ask how it's possible that there's something worse than those snakes, since they can't even beat them. But he tells them he has a piece of equipment that will decide who can easily clear that area. People get anxious, especially since they thought those were the strongest items available. Then, he shows Evelyn Sire's helmet, which can reduce the attack and movement ability of anyone who hits the wearer. Our guy, in his skin, says they can take a look for themselves. People are in shock, especially because it has much more defense than any other item. Even Ling Chi, the most famous streamer, wants to have it. Our guy says the auction will start at 15,000 with a minimum increment of 2,000. Immediately, the prices start to skyrocket. One bid goes up to $5,000, another to 7,000, and the last one ends up selling for 8,700. Back at home, he's overjoyed, as he made more money today than he thought he would make in his entire life. Also, his hand is regaining feeling, and even his leg is now starting to feel warm. The only problem is that now people will be able to get through the forest. However, he did the best he could. Back in the game, people are fully equipped and ready to advance. With that, the spiders from before are no longer a challenge, and Lin Chi is there with his dangerous set. The group starts farming some items from the spiders, and then they go after the snakes. It was already 4:50 in the morning, and people were still hunting in the floresta until everyone stopped and Lin Chi asked what that was. They have finally found Evelyn Sire. People recognized by the name that this was the place where the item that had been sold was obtained. Before they could say anything, she had already jumped at them and, with one attack, immobilized all the members of that guild. The next morning, our guy woke up impressed. He thought about how brave they were to face her. Lewin started to think that the crowd control abilities that Evelyn Sire has would be very useful to learn. However, when he went to buy the item that cost 1,000 yesterday, today it already cost 2,000. He decides to buy it anyway, before it goes up even more. At that moment, he uses the item on the boss. That grants him the ability she has, but he will need spiderwebs to be able to use it. With that, he calls his friends to jump into battle. 10 minutes later, he's at a crossroads. He has just left the Floresta and can go to the main city or to the Beast Mountain. Considering his current identity, he decides it's better to go to the mountain. However, something leaves him impressed. The region is much larger than he expected. He sends his bugs to explore the area, while he does the same, and with that he discovers various other monster races. The problem is that he wanted something new to recruit and none of them seem good for that. Then, he arrives in front of the Chaos Burial Hill. The system mentions that no one should ask about the Headless One and says it's a level 20 area. Also, now that he has reached level 11, he no longer receives the beginner's protections. As soon as Lewin gets closer, a hand comes out of the ground and suddenly a monstrous creature appears. A very dangerous one. It's level 24. Our guy knows he has no chance against it and, at that moment, she casts a skeleton spell to attack him. Our guy takes a ton of damage and tries to escape by running. However, a creature that deals area of effect damage is exactly what he needed. But suddenly, before he can escape, the whole group is surrounded. He starts trying to get out, while everyone is taking hits for him. After gaining some distance, he tells his friends that he will try to lure one and for them to wait there. One thing he can also do is use the new spider ability to try and lure one. He just thinks it's ridiculous that this thing comes out of his belly. 10 minutes later, the creature seems to have accepted the contract, but its level was reduced to 11. He sees that it not only has an area of effect attack, but it can also reduce the defense of others. 15 minutes later, he managed to capture another one and now he has a squad of 5. Additionally, he receives a mission to expel a creature with the name of King from a region and take control of the territory. He knows that the best option would be a place that few players can reach, and when he sees the top of the mountain, he imagines that's a good spot. However, what he finds there is a Tiger King. But now, with his whole group, he feels confident that he can beat it until he takes 2 swipes that deal more than 300 damage each. He realizes that he won't be able to withstand that alone and calls his friends too to help him with that. The battle begins. but the boss is full of poison. It took him 40 minutes to kill the creature. The system gives him the option to kill the monster and receive normal rewards, or he can expel the creature from the territory and become the owner of that place. However, that will only make it respawn in another position. Since he is interested in having his own territory, he decides to expel it. With that, he receives the right to settle in that place and also the mission to clear the entire summit and name it. Additionally, he receives a brave title that increases his health by 20%. Lewin was thrilled with the feeling of becoming the king of a part of that game. With that, they decided to go back to hunting to level up a bit more, and, obviously, what he wanted most were the items from that region, to make a good profit. He finally reached level 12, which unlocked the secret realm of the Moon Valley. That place is like a kind of dungeon with many more items and bosses. Lewin wonders if it's worth entering. He decides to leave his creatures hunting while he takes a look to see how everything works there. The system informs him that he can pray for an item before entering and that perhaps the gods will grant it to him. Also, the first person who enters a realm also receives 5 times the rewards. He can also offer some type of item to receive, one of the same type. He understands that if he offers a weapon, he will receive weapons, and if he offers armor, he will receive armor. However, he has a much better idea. With a valuable item, he decides to offer the only 4-star material he received from the female boss. With that, his prayers are heard and he can enter the secret realm. Inside, he is impressed with how gigantic the place is, and at that moment, a global announcement is made. Everyone finds out that he has entered that dungeon and receives the title Pioneer of the Moon. Additionally, the dungeon is open from 10:45 at night until the morning. People can't believe he is progressing so quickly compared to everyone else. Obviously, our big wolf didn't like that everyone found out about this. However, the title increases his strength by 10%, which isn't bad at all. Suddenly, he starts being attacked by some green moon wolves, and our boy lunges at them excitedly, since he's there to collect materials. As he is much stronger than a normal level 12 player, he has no difficulty at all, and since he is the first person to enter that place, each kill gives him 5 times the normal reward. The inner capitalist in him is desperate to farm as much as possible. An hour later, he had already leveled up and had collected over 1,000 materials. The list is huge. I'm not going to read all of that, but his critical talent is already at 23%. Now he's looking for an ancient heart and an ancient fragment. Unfortunately, it's already time to face the boss, so he hopes he can get those items. He faces the boss, who only has 6,000 health, which he considers very little, and with that he defeats it extremely easily, obtaining more than 35-star fragments. Everyone finds out that he cleared that realm in 5 minutes. He decides to exchange the fragments for prestige items and also upgrade that item that increases his legion. With that, he can now have 10 subordinates and even delegate one as a leader. This guy is soon going to make it impossible to hunt in that forest with the number of creatures he has. And now, before logging out of the game, he sets a specific quest to get the item he needs back. In his room, he's overjoyed about making so much money it feels like a dream, and the inside of his body is practically 100% normal. Maybe he'll be able to stand up again soon. Furthermore, he's already thinking about buying a house with all the money he's earned. He spots a medium-sized apartment that's within his price range. Meanwhile, at the National Security Building of Country C, a member of the Special Operations Group asks if it isn't strange to have to assemble an entire team just to play a game. However, a guy named Linhai says that the government and even the military are getting involved with this game, so they need to understand why. He speculates that there's something bigger behind all this and asks Linhai how his problem is going. To that, the guy explains that they're trying very hard, but they're still stuck in the poison forest. The guy gives him information about a certain person who he must make sure to turn into a good ally. The next day, our guy, even in a wheelchair, went to buy the apartment. The saleswoman greeted him and he said he was there to buy something medium-sized. What he didn't know was that there were some guys watching him from behind, saying it was definitely him. Linhai had told everyone to get ready. Meanwhile, the agent was showing the apartments to our guy. The woman told him not to hesitate for a second and to buy it right away. However, even the narrator mentioned that if someone tells you not to hesitate, it's better to hesitate. But Luchin was making so much money that he thought buying a little gift for his sister was no big deal, until a pink-haired girl showed up and told him not to buy that apartment, saying it was full of problems. She warned everyone not to buy apartments there because they had serious quality issues. The people started to have doubts, because a purchase like that represented years and years of their life savings. The saleswoman called the security guards to remove the girl, but she kept saying that she even had proof. She also mentioned that you wouldn't get your money back after paying. The guards approached and said they were going to remove the woman without hurting her too much. However, one of them bumped into Luchin and told the cripple to get out of the way. He grabbed the girl by the arm and told her to come have a word with him. She refused and asked for someone to help her. Our guy was just standing there, unable to do anything. Meanwhile, the crowd seemed to be recording, saying it would make an incredible video. The girl told them to stop recording and help her, since she had come to save them. Then, our protagonist grabbed the guard's arm and told him to stop harassing the girl. However, the guard tried to kick him and told him to shut up. Our guy was shocked to find he had enough strength to stop a kick out of nowhere, and suddenly another guy appeared with a baton, but Luchin stopped him with an elbow strike. Only in this crazy manhwa, the guy is stopping batons and beating everyone up without leaving his wheelchair. The guy who got elbowed told them to just throw him out of the wheelchair. A guard ran up from behind and pushed the chair, but suddenly someone else caught it. Looking around, he saw that the guys from before had arrived, telling him not to worry, that they would take care of everything. With that, they started wrecking the security guards. A short time later, they were all on the ground. They told Luchin not to worry, that they would handle the rest. Linhai, who was watching everything, found the situation strange, but suddenly, the boss of the place showed up, asking who was causing trouble for the Yang group. He came down and saw Linhai calling someone to report the trouble at that location. The boss laughed, saying that no one in that city had the guts to mess with them. However, Linhai warned him that he had a maximum of 10 minutes to disappear from there. The boss laughed and replied that, on the other hand, they had 1 minute. The henchman said that they would be careful not to break his bones. At that moment, one of them jumped like in the Matrix and tried to land a punch on Linhai, but Linhai, being a secret agent, dodged it and kicked him. He even caught another one in mid-air with a punch to the ribs. Before the boss could understand what was happening, his henchmen were thrown backwards. Then, Linhai asked the boss what he thought of all that, and the boss said he was willing to pay compensation, but he also got a punch to the gut for being an idiot. Linhai said that they had offended a young master and would have to pay a heavy price for it. Around them, people were commenting that the guy in the wheelchair must be the son of someone very rich. But the girl in the middle said that didn't make sense, considering he had come to buy an apartment there. However, Linhai took advantage of these rumors to disguise the situation and say that the young master had returned to the family. Our boy decided to play along and said that he was willing to live a common life and buy any old house. 3 minutes later, the police arrived and the guy who was selling the problematic apartments, obviously, didn't get away with it. He left, scared by the supposed family background of the guy in the wheelchair. The guard said that everything had been resolved and Linhai thanked him. With that, he turned to the young master and said they needed a quiet place to talk. Luchin started to realize that this had something to do with the game and just hoped the favor wasn't too big. Even the girl with the pink hair came to thank him, saying that he had been amazing, but our boy said it was nothing. Then, Linhai told his henchmen to give the girl a reward while he talked with Luchin. The scene changed to a restaurant where Luchin asked who they were. The guy said they wouldn't reveal their identity, but that they knew about someone named I Am the Only Savage and they needed his help. Luchin asked why he should help them get him. The guy said that the game's methods might be secure, but bank accounts were not. Luchin already knew how he had been exposed. Linhai explained that his team had 500 people trapped in the swamp of snakes and they needed help. If he accepted, he could take that card and buy a house from one of the biggest real estate agencies. Luchin said he couldn't accept because the favor was too small. However, Linhai explained that he didn't yet know the scale of this game and that there was a lot more to come. Luchin accepts the deal, saying it's fine, since doesn't like to owe favors. Linhai just asks him to put the house in the Chinan group's name when he buys it, so that he can get a 30% discount. Our guy says he understands, but asks why they're spending so much on a game. The guy explains that he doesn't know exactly why, but that entire countries, including their militaries, are involved in this, so it's more complex than it seems. Luchin starts to leave, saying that they should show up at the forest between 7 and 7:30. The guy asks if he isn't going to give them more details, to which Len replies that they'll understand everything once they get there. Although he didn't want to get involved with other people, considering that his personal details could be discovered, he thought it would be better to have a safe place, and that's why he agreed. At 7:30, the entire company group was stuck at the entrance to the forest. It's currently so difficult to buy items that people are poorly equipped because there's nothing in the shop. However, Len tells everyone to move forward, that they need to start evolving. Then, everyone is shocked, all wondering what is going on. The creatures throughout the forest were defeated on the ground. Linhai wondered if he had really done it alone. Our guy had already gone back there and had even killed the boss. 20 minutes later, they found the dead boss and couldn't believe it was Rhyme. Aha. We jump forward 2 days later. In the mountain region, he is as usual, farming wolves while his creatures dominate the region. The creature he's facing is the 3-petal monster, and it seems like the game just changes the skeleton's color and calls it something new. From it, he gets a long, flowered skirt that has the effect of increasing movement speed. Our guy is surprised that it took him 2 days to get that item. Immediately, he decides to start an auction to profit as much as possible, as always. Obviously, the biggest threat in this whole game is there, thinking about checking out the market to see if there's anything interesting. That skirt is limited to female characters and has the ability to control a target for 30 seconds. The user of that skin clicks the option to try it on to see how it looks and smells a pleasant scent. Flowers. Plus, it looks incredible on her, so she needs to buy it. The problem is that as soon as she makes a bid in the auction, a bunch of people immediately raise the price. The girls who have their sugar daddies are begging them to get that item for them, and she asks in a post for players to offer her whatever they want in exchange. The auction is about to end in 5 seconds and is already at 65,000. In the final seconds, a bunch of people, so many people, start raising the bid. She gets scared, wondering how many people want it. However, the item is sold to a girl named Fada Danka for 13,000. Lewin didn't imagine that people would compete so much for it, but for him, it's perfect. Besides, he's been farming the bloodline of the creatures of nature while he was in that region. With the new bloodline, he can see up to 400 meters away and a small plant sprouts from his head. With that, he enters a region he had been avoiding, which is full of fog. There lies the path of the Lost Eden, where it's common to get lost and the monsters trick you. Suddenly, everyone receives the announcement that the lone savage has activated the Lost Eden mission, which was a mission that would involve everyone on the server and would double the experience they received for 10 hours. People saw that the recommended level was 20. However, they were eager to participate since it involved everyone. Additionally, all the servers would merge to participate in this. The biggest guilds started forming parties to survive this mission. Meanwhile, Lewin was sad because once again everyone was notified of what he was doing. In front of him was a bunch of super mutated werewolves. They were level 15 creatures in large numbers and much stronger than normal. Then he remembered that this mission strengthened all wild creatures and, by chance, he and his wolves also belonged to that race. With that, his creatures began to get stronger and enter a super mutation mode, including our boy, whose attributes were doubled for this mission. Since there was still time before the mission started, he decided to take a look at the live stream of Lynchy. Everyone was in front of the main city. This time the number of players was greater than on the first day. But the great danger was that no one would have the protection for players under level 10. However, there was one person who wasn't competing with everyone else. Obviously, it was our savage boy who was already near the grove. The only thing was that the plant on his head gave him a somewhat ridiculous appearance. However, he didn't waste any time and started farming the event creatures, obtaining a gigantic list of items as usual. He ran into one of the mini-bosses of the area and wondered what he could get from it. What he got were fragments of a level 5 talent and a bunch of event points and, obviously, what the capitalist likes most, 3 green items, including a claw and a ring that increase critical chance. Obviously, he decided to equip all of it, since he was in the middle of the event and it wasn't the time to sell. With all that and his bloodline, his critical chance was much higher. When he went to check the shop, he saw that everything was selling for much more. Since people were quickly gearing up to participate in the event, he was basically making 2,000 every 5 minutes, selling items and rushed off to get more. The players were now already advancing through the grove, looking for the creatures. They saw a fog approaching from one direction and wondered if that was the way, but the server notified them that the lone savage had entered a more advanced region, which was why the intensity of the fog had increased. People thought he was crazy for going on a server mission alone and that he would die soon. They decided to take that opportunity to find him and start farming too. It was then that Lewin found one of the pillars that had to be destroyed. He turned to his zombie girl and ordered her to attack. With that, she jumped towards the pillar, but just at that moment a level 20 boss appeared. With 2 hits, it dealt him more than 2,500 damage. He told his minions to keep their distance, as they would die in a single hit. His poison was dealing 600 damage, but that thing had 100,000 HP. Lately, things had been easy, so he had accumulated quite a few items and decided it was time to use them. He started spending all the spider webs he had gathered and using the potions on his creatures. Obviously, his creatures would take a hit and nearly die. 1 hour passed and the boss was still alive, and Lewin was running out of items. Meanwhile, outside, people were fighting against the wolves. Ling Qi and her friend realized that the longer they spent inside the fog, the weaker they became, and they all decided they had to find a way to solve that quickly. But that's when the lone wild player obtained the title of the first to triumph and had destroyed the pillar of that place. While he rested, the system calculated the rewards. That had cost him everything he had accumulated, but he was confident the reward would be worth it. He could choose the ability to summon a creature similar to that boss, or he could receive a pet that was basically a wolf pup, but when it grew up, it would be a big surprise. Lewin knew he had a territory under his control, so maybe Raising the creature that would always be by his side would be the best option, and, with that, he chose the wolf with the pacifier. Raising the creature that would always be by his side would be the best option, and with that, he chose the wolf with the pacifier. Stats. The server event had 8 pillars, and now there were 7 left. With that, he called his wolves to move forward. While the players were trying to organize themselves to fight the wolves, they were finally managing to finish off all the moon creatures, but when the lone wild one activated another pillar, the fog once again increased. People realized that he was advancing too quickly, and that they would have no way to catch up to him. But suddenly, a giant portal appeared for everyone and they were regrouped. At the same time, the group from the Dynasty Guild was also preparing to participate in the event, but they decided it was foolish to farm weak creatures and wanted to go straight for the boss, until they received the message that the lone wild one had broken the second pillar and only 6 remained. Then they became desperate and said they had to catch up to that bastard. Our boy had now obtained a little bird. It seemed he was collecting pets. The only problem was that Lua no longer had any potions and they weren't selling any in the shop. That's when he heard someone shouting about having seen a werewolf. It was other players warning to be careful and not to aggro the creature. What they found strange was that the boss's name was gigantic and seemed over the top. Then Lewin remembered the easiest way to collect potions. With that, he ordered his army to finish off the players. The poor players didn't stand a chance, not even against the creatures he summoned. The group leader tried to tell everyone to follow his plan, but before he could, he was hit from an unknown location. Everyone was being torn apart, saying that the event boss was invincible. Now that people no longer had beginner's protection, when they died, their items were also dropped. He ordered his creatures to collect everything, including the potions. The only concern he had was that he was starting to be caught up to by other players. Meanwhile, in the southern part, people were facing one of the bosses. He decided not to get involved, since the group was also preparing to participate in the event, but they decided it was foolish to farm weak creatures. It would take more than 1 hour to kill that creature, so he decided to watch some live streams to understand how the other players were doing. Ling Chi, on his stream, commented that it would take a while to kill that boss, so he was going to take a look at other regions. In the southernmost part, it would probably be where the first boss would be defeated. In the northernmost part, there was a 4-armed orc, and in the easternmost part, there was a horned creature. Now, Lewin knew exactly which ones he could kill without anyone interrupting him. He called his group to do another sweep. As soon as he arrived, he activated the spider's capture attack. I thought he would use it against the boss, but the guy went to kill more players. The players wondered who that approaching creature was, but obviously, they didn't stand a chance and were quickly eliminated. 8 minutes later, he had killed all the players who were fighting the crab boss to steal the kill. Since it already had low health thanks to the players, it only took him 5 minutes to kill it. In the western part, people were facing another boss and, obviously, someone showed up killing everyone to steal that kill too. 1 hour later, there was a little dwarf watching someone. Every time he killed a boss, he got a new pet. Now he already had a collection of pets around him. With that, the system congratulated him for having collected all the cubs and he received a limited quest that only activated when that happened. He would have to sacrifice some of the other creatures to be able to choose an even stronger one. He looked at the options and was surprised that something like that actually existed. He decided to choose Niddo, the black dragon of despair. Suddenly, he was teleported to the sky and all of a sudden, from the top of the pillars, the creatures began to howl. It was then that he realized that the sacrifice mentioned in the quest meant he would have to kill those critters. The problem was how to kill what he was trying to summon. Actually, what would happen was that the 4 creatures would help him kill the boss. This, in fact, was his ability to devise strategies with multiple creatures, something he already had quite a bit of experience with. With that, the dragon Nid descended to the ground and the guy launched a blast of fire at everyone. The monster's special attack dealt 20,000 damage. He was thankful to have the boss and immediately ordered his team to retreat to a safe zone. He tied up the boss's legs to prevent it from flying and activating its ability again. And then he ordered the quest creatures to attack. Obviously, the damage they were dealing wasn't very high. It was going to take quite a while, but he was confident he would succeed. 1 hour later, in another part of the event, there was a dispute between the guilds, as some were trying to monopolize the items, and the order was given not to let anyone play dirty, since everyone had made a deal. However, the Dusty Guild's group had already advanced to try and get what was left and managed to destroy one of the few pillars our guy hadn't reached. The server announced that the event was over. They would have to wait for the secret dungeon and then double experience would be activated. However, it was obvious that people were angry with Dusty since they broke the deal and killed the boss, their account, and with that, they were all teleported back. They were all crying since they didn't get almost anything in the event, and they all advanced towards the dynasty. telling them to return what they had taken. The leader didn't know what secret mission that was, that he couldn't leave the game until the person finished it in there. Lewin was still facing the dragon. Meanwhile, it had become chaotic outside and the players were all fighting each other. Other players around noticed that people were trying to steal the divine beast and wondered if they shouldn't participate. With that, more people decided to get involved in the fight. The goal of everyone was to kill the members of the guild that kept the item and take it for themselves. Meanwhile, Lewin was finishing the legendary mission and obtained the dragon's blood. That made him unlock a secret mission called Divine Blood of the Demonic Seed. Man, so many names. And why did they mix the divine with the demonic? He would have to obtain 4 of the most powerful creatures in the game, and he already had one, which was the dragon, in addition to the 4 most powerful ones. Lastly, he had to complete some dungeons, and with that, he would receive a divine blood and a demonic blood. Lewin was startled. That clearly wouldn't be easy at all and would take a century to do. But with that, the Lost Eden mission had ended. With that, he was removed from the secret place and saw everyone fighting. He was left wondering what had caused all that chaos in the place. The people, as soon as they saw him, recognized him as the boss with the giant name. However, our boy didn't feel like staying there. He decided to run towards his own territory, where he had more of an advantage in his creatures, but on the way he heard someone calling the prince of the dynasty. Our boy wondered if they didn't know that this was his home and, at that moment, Lingxi was also attacking the guy, telling him to go to hell. It's a shame that our boy's wolves got involved and started beating up everyone, including the leader who was killed in a second. Then, our boy captured the only things the guys had. Now he realized that this Eden event was actually a huge PvP for these creatures, and the only thing he was missing was one of the few he hadn't caught, and he ran off, saying that if that was the case, he was going to monopolize everything. Ling Qi and his ally were attacking a guy who was trying to flee until the final boss arrived, hitting the guy in the back who instantly fell to the ground in a second. Everyone was dead and he had collected everything, with that activating the evil beast mission just like last time. He would have to choose a creature and enter the realm to conquer it. He decided to do it immediately, since with the experience from the last time he was sure he could pull it off. 2 hours later, he was exhausted and couldn't wait to get out of the game and get some sleep. Back at home, he knew he had earned more than 1 million and wanted to surprise his sister who never comes home. It was then that he looked at his cell phone and saw that he had 16 missed calls from her. He called and asked what had happened and if she had a problem. She said she just wanted to vent because the Dynasty Guild wasn't letting her team evolve. Our boy said that it would be great if he could help her. She said he didn't have to worry about it and that he could rest for now. He was avoiding telling her so that no one would involve the 2 of them and she wouldn't be at any risk. The next day, that darn thing was already walking. Wow, that helmet really heals, huh? He was at level 14 and was sure that with 3 more levels, he would be back to normal. To him, this game was too magical, and yeah, kid, be careful. It really is too magical. Now something's up. He returned to the game and immediately put everyone to farming and starting to evolve, wanting to make life difficult for the Dynasty Guild, because he wanted to help his sister. With that, he contacted the Linhai Guild and asked for help in locating them. The guy said he would help and only asked that he sell him some good items later. 5 minutes later, our boy was already wiping out the entire guild. The only problem was that he wanted to be closer to her, and for that, he would need a human appearance. That's when he remembered that every time he killed 1,000 creatures in the mall, a skin to look like them would appear. And maybe if he killed enough humans, he could get something similar. With that, life for the entire guild became a living hell. 10 hours later, the guys still couldn't leave the city, and he was still killing everyone. He decided to call his sister and ask her how her day had been. She told him it wasn't easy at all, because those people kept bothering her. So, he told her to give him the nick, because he knew a very strong friend who would help her. She wanted to know where he had met this supposed master friend. He told her not to worry about the details and just focus on the fact that the guy was very strong. With that, she agreed, and he swore that her big brother would help her. He left his name anonymous, so no one would know who he was, and added his sister. Her nick is the person who loves Big Brother the most. That already gave him the certainty that it could only be her. He introduced himself as a friend of Lu Chen and asked her about the problems she was having. In the picture, the crazy girl who loves her brother the most was still drooling, and she explained that the Dynasty Guild was monopolizing one of the quests they needed to do with a certain NPC. Lewin knew which one that was monster and knew where the boss was located. With that, he told her he would find her soon, because he had something to complete and ran off to wipe out that entire guild in the region. The people from Desti were there killing the boss, until they got a scare when someone came rushing in desperately. Our boy ran past everyone and was about to complete his mission. Obviously, the boss didn't stand a chance, and the only thing it dropped were some potions. Suddenly, he received an email with a video and decided to take a look. He saw it was from his sister and decided to watch it to see how she looked in the game. Turns out she looked pretty decent, and he let her know that the Dasti people had already been killed, so she had nothing to worry about. However, in reality, she had just stepped into a trap, and a girl in purple clothes told her that if she wanted to complete that quest, she would have to kneel and beg, "Kid." Before she could say anything, she had already been whipped, and the woman asked her where the brother from her nick was. At that moment, Lewin had completed the skin quest and decided to buy it. With that, our boy finally had a more normal appearance. He was super happy because he was gorgeous and finally looked like a person. To change his wolf in sheep's clothing persona, his sister sent him a message saying she was stressed and was going to log off the game for a bit. Lewin decided to solve that problem in the starting city. He would just have to unequip some of his gear, so he wouldn't scare people. His sister took off her headset and was furious. However, her friend told her that she had no reason to worry, because soon their boss would return and get revenge for her. But Luigi didn't want to cause trouble for everyone in the company, because they could end up dying because of Desti. Our boy was in the low-level area. When a strange goblin headed toward him, he was thinking about killing it when a bunch of players approached before he could say anything. The players were already desperate to finish it off. It was then that he noticed one of the girls in that fight was the girl from the real estate agency, and her name was Jualo. Her friend in the blue outfit had taken an item and said she was going to sell it, until the girl noticed our boy and asked if he had gotten separated from his guild. He said no, that he was actually a lone wolf and didn't have a guild. The people laughed, saying that was a pretty crazy way to play, but he used it as an opportunity to return to the city with them and disguise himself, pretending to be a random adventurer. Except, at the city entrance, there were a lot of people at the gate, and he had no idea the beginner player area was like this, and he noticed that right in front of the gate there was some kind of ranking board. Those were the strongest people in that area, and they received items for it every day. Chihualo commented that the guy at the top of the rankings, named Tawuj, was a very strong fighter who had spent a lot of money. Lu knew that this was a very important competition and it would be great if he could participate. The guy told him not to even think about it, since only one solo player could beat that challenge. He asked who that was, and the guy told him it was obviously the Lone Savage. The girl must have had a detector, because she immediately asked if he was the Lone Savage, since he had a name like someone who likes to hunt alone and wasn't with anyone. Obviously, he got all nervous and said he wasn't him. Her friend told them to stop chatting and keep moving. The girl in blue is named Lengu, and she's giving up her acting career to form a guild in the game. Our boy was just standing there thinking that it's no wonder she's so beautiful. The beginner's city was extremely lively, and our boy was amazed by the architecture. Suddenly, some guy bumped into him and told him to get out of the way. They kept walking, and one of them turned around and told Lu to watch where he was going. Nearby, people were commenting that the three masters were going to challenge the Immortal Tower again. Lu decided that maybe it would be something good to do while his sister was offline. He headed toward the tower challenge, and people asked him why someone so useless was trying something like that. They started laughing in his face, saying he wouldn't even survive for 20 seconds. However, he just walked up and said he wanted to sign up for the Immortal Tower challenge. The guys just said to ignore that crazy person and focus on the trial of the three great masters. The people in his new group were impressed, and the actress was curious about our boy's performance. 4 people who entered, 3 were defeated in 1 second, but Luing didn't disclose his result. Wallow felt a little sad that he didn't reveal it. However, Leng Nu just told him to pay attention to the other 3 masters and learn from them. The white-haired guy was excited, saying that this time he was going to break his record, and everyone outside said he was very good and that he would finish it in a maximum of 15 seconds. 2 minutes passed. People were impressed that the beginner had entered and hadn't come out yet. Leng Nu had no idea why his time kept increasing. He had already been in the room for 3 minutes and 11 seconds. The white-haired guy wanted to do the next challenge, but the game wouldn't let him in. Inside, our boy was finishing off a bunch of moon wolves. Those 100 copper coins that each one dropped were the perfect opportunity for him to earn even more money. He had already been on the first floor for 4 minutes and the system forced him to the next one. He got angry, but he didn't realize that he already had a level 11 boss next to him. However, he destroyed it easily, and that one gave him 200 copper coins. 4 minutes later, he was forced to the next floor. Obviously, he was going to take advantage of this money paradise. The people started to get scared that he had been on the 3rd floor for so long, and the girls couldn't believe that he was really that strong. 2 minutes and 33 seconds had already passed, and the other challengers were starting to be defeated. Eventually, one by one they started losing, and the gray-haired guy decided he had to rest a bit or he would end up dying in there too. However, he had also finally beaten the 3rd floor, but on the 4th he was being torn apart by some plants and realized that was his limit. As soon as he came out, everyone praised him, saying it's no wonder he's the #1 player. The friend next to him said it was impressive that he was the first to reach the 4th floor. However, that's when he noticed that the rest of the people seemed to be more anxious about the other result. Everyone was screaming because the time kept increasing, and he saw that the player Anonymous had been on the 4th floor for 56 seconds. Lewin was having fun, since each monster there dropped 400 coins of copper. He spent 4 minutes on the 4th floor and was forced to the next one. Outside, the girls were impressed, and Yen didn't know that people would go crazy finding that out. And that was exactly what was happening. They were going crazy seeing that someone had reached the 5th floor and wondered if that guy wasn't the only savage. However, when they went to Lingqi's live stream, the only savage was there, saying that someday he would try to go to that tower. Obviously, he did that so no one would think he was the only savage. Besides, he decided he was going to stop on the 5th floor because, otherwise, it would be overkill. The money he had earned was good, so it was time to leave. As soon as he came out, he got a scare. There was a bunch of people surrounding our boy. A friend from the group said it was incredible that the anonymous guy had reached the 5th, and at that moment, he asked him to teach him the secret techniques. However, the former number 1 said his gear was trash and demanded that he tell them how he had cheated. Everyone agreed that it was impossible to get that far with such weak items, but Lewin simply. He replied that he was under no obligation to say how he did it and warned the guy that from now on, that territory no longer belonged to him. With that, he left the fools there. Without saying another word, he went to the clerk, who told him to register the guild's name. He just wanted the reward and not to create a guild, but then he thought that maybe it wouldn't be such a bad idea. The problem was that he would need 4 people, so he remembered that the group from before had mentioned wanting to create a guild. With Lengo, he called the group to join the guild and told them they could leave afterward. All he wanted was to get the reward from the tower. Walua said that she understood, but it was a shame and they wouldn't be able to help with something so difficult. He said that didn't matter. He just wanted to create the guild to receive the rewards. However, Lenu said that as guild comrades, she would indeed help him. With that, he went to register and it cost him 50 silver coins. The girls were impressed that he had the money and, obviously, our boy had just earned that silver in the tower. With that, he created the guild called Wicked Wave. My gosh, what a ridiculous name. Obviously, Lenuo approached. She said he's a bit weak, but at least he could share some of the damage, but our boy is cruel and told her he didn't need her help. The only thing he wanted to know was why so many people were watching him. What he was doing was the guild challenge, but solo, and everyone wanted to know why he went alone. So there was the Wicked Wave Guild with an 11-second clear on the 1st floor. Walua was unsure, but our dear Lenuo was confident in our boy. As soon as he reached the 1st floor, no one could believe it. At his sister's company, a friend was commenting that someone was breaking the records in the tower. The sister asked if it was the lone savage and she replied that no, it was actually an anonymous player. She was left wondering who it was when the boss came in and said they were going to take down the people who were hurting her. They seemed motivated, saying that Ara's guild had a bunch of arrogant people and that they had to get revenge. The friend just said thank you. Meanwhile, our boy was clearing the entire guild challenge, winning all by himself and was already on the 3rd floor. The day was already starting to get dark and people were still standing out there without moving. As soon as he came out, there were still people there praising our boy. Lenuo said they should check out the place where they were supposed to establish the guild base. However, our boy just said he didn't have time for that and was going to go farming, but his friend was motivated because he was now an elder in the strongest guild of all. The strangest thing was that the strongest guild only had 4 members and they were part of it. Walua said that since the leader didn't care about the guild, they should manage it and make it grow with the fame he left behind. Lenuo seemed a bit unsure about that and said it was better to ask him first. With that, they sent the friend to talk to our boy, who was more interested in going back to farming. The guy told him that they wanted to manage the guild and I don't know what else, but Lewin didn't care much and just said they could do whatever they wanted with it. The guy got all happy, as it was a golden opportunity. Meanwhile, he was more worried about how his sister was there. The scene shifts to his sister's guild going to challenge the whip girl. The blonde leader approached and told the woman to step aside or they would have to take her down. However, she just laughed, asking who they thought they were. The leader wanted to know why she was causing trouble for a player from his guild. She said she didn't like the girl's nickname and her appearance, and that's why she decided to beat her up. The guy said that was ridiculous and ordered everyone to attack. However, she had a bunch of followers who immediately came to defend her, and worst of all, she was the wife of the Desti Guild leader. Louis asked what they were going to do, and the leader said to try and stay calm. He turned to the Desti leader and said they should end this conflict. However, the leader just replied that they were a bunch of trash and he wasn't afraid of them. The leader said there was no reason for this, but the guy warned that no one would complete the mission there. The girl with the whip said she would let them pass if they all knelt down to kiss her foot. Obviously, no one accepted that. The guy from Desti approached and said that in that case, they would have to settle it another way, and went straight for the captain, saying that that was the fastest way. With that, her group started getting beaten up. Lou realized that her group wasn't that strong since they couldn't complete those missions. She turned to the leader and told him they should run, but he said they were a team and he wouldn't leave them behind until a gust of wind passed by. The leader said that union was incredible that they had, but it would be useless. He approached Louie and told her that if she knelt, she would be forgiven. However, she said only in his dreams. At that moment, he went to strike her, but she barely managed to defend herself for a while. Afterwards, everyone appeared in the respawn area. They had been wiped out and everyone lost some items. Apparently, the leader had gone to ask another guild for help. Louis saw that she had received some messages and decided to take a look. Obviously, it was our boy saying he was on his way, but she replied that it was crazy since the entire Dynasty Guild was there. However, he just replied that it was fine and that it wouldn't change anything. She was left confused, wondering if he hadn't understood what she told him. She tried to explain it better, but he just replied that you never know what might happen. It was then that her leader appeared and said that, unfortunately, the leaders of the other guilds didn't want to go against Desti. She said it was okay, and that for now, she would just kill some creatures to see if she would level up a bit. She knew that people wouldn't stay in front of that boss forever and decided she would leave that mission for the time being. With that, she told her group that she wouldn't bother them anymore and left. The group was sad because they wanted to help her, but unfortunately, they couldn't do anything until someone in a mask approached right behind Desti. He asked if they had killed the girl who loves her brother very much. The girl laughed and asked if he was the supposed brother, and the guy asked him if he was really going to die for her. Lewin just told them to apologize before it was too late. However, obviously, the guys started laughing since he was alone. At that moment, Louis arrived and told him not to get involved because it wasn't worth it. However, he warned her not to worry because it would be easy to solve. The others couldn't stop laughing, calling him arrogant. The guy with the pompadour said he would finish him in one hit, and the boss told him not to kill him so quickly, while Lou tried to insist that our guy shouldn't do it. Before he could answer, the guy jumped to hit him. However, he just swung his hammer to the side and hit the guy in the face. In that same instant, he was knocked to the ground with 0 health. At that moment, people realized it wasn't going to be so easy. The girl with purple hair asked what that was, and the leader said it must be some kind of bug. However, Lou just told them all to get on their knees and start apologizing. Obviously, the leader wasn't going to give up so easily, and ordered the entire guild to attack him. With that, our guy started getting attacked by the gang. However, every hit with his hammer dealt 1900 damage and the guys died instantly. He barely made a move and half the guild was already on the ground. People had no idea it was possible to deal 2000 damage and wondered if they should run, but as soon as the leader turned around, Lou was already behind him. The captain took the opportunity to sacrifice his members and ran off. People recognized Lou as the guy who had defeated him and said that Dynasty was finished. Fallen on the ground, the leader begged for mercy, but obviously, he received a swift blow to the back of the neck. He turned to the girl and told her to apologize or her guild would never have peace. At that moment, she started banging her head on the ground, saying she would never do something like that again. However, Lou said he couldn't let it go so easily and that she had to receive a little punishment to learn her lesson. She handed an axe to Luigi and told her she could use it until she felt better. Just then, Luigi's friend commented that she knew a very strong guy and asked to be introduced. She turned to our guy and asked him to introduce himself, asking who he really was. He just said to tell her he was her brother's friend. She wanted to give him the item the woman had given her, but he told her it was very valuable and she could keep it. Besides, that weapon wouldn't be of any use to him, so it would be a waste. He warned her that, from now on, anyone who messed with her, he would take care of it. With that, he left, and the friend told Luigi she didn't have to worry about anything anymore. Our guy returned to his territory. He had bought some human pills in that place and was wondering when they would improve. However, it was time to keep leveling up, so he called everyone. The creatures on the mountain were no longer a challenge and he wanted to find a dungeon to farm. He found it interesting that there was a pretty strong Korean guild from another server that was already clearing the Tiger's Cavern, and then an announcement was made that the Three Saints Guild was challenging everyone on the China server to compete in that place. Our guy saw it was the perfect opportunity, not only to run a dungeon, but also to get an extra reward. The friend notified Lynchy about the challenge, who commented that those guys were arrogant for challenging the entire world, but in the video, you could see that their guild was really strong and that the players were the real deal, organized. The problem was that on their server, no one had ever heard of that cavern, so maybe they would be left behind. What they didn't know was that our boy was already inside killing a bunch of creatures, too. So far, the place wasn't so bad, since there was green tier equipment. With the new agility boots, he was hitting much faster and started running through the cavern, killing everything he found. Shortly after, he was already facing the boss. Ling Chi was commenting on how that guild had gotten a very powerful item for themselves. The entire server was being embarrassed, and Ling Chi wanted to know where the lone savage was. Inside, our boy was already killing another of the bosses, in addition to the saber-toothed tiger and the level 19 king. The best part was that blue-quality items were already starting to appear. Blue-quality items. He realized that the boss he had just killed was a secret one that could only be unlocked if you killed the others very quickly. Meanwhile, the other guild was struggling against that creature. Ling Chi commented that they had already failed 5 times, but they were getting closer and closer. 3 minutes later, it seemed like the boss was being defeated, and the people from the Korean guild were celebrating. Now, with all those new items, they had become even stronger, which made things difficult for their server. People were wondering why the lone savage wasn't doing anything and wondered if they should accept the challenge. But inside, our boy was already facing another boss. This time, he got 2 blue-quality items, one of which was a cloak that increased movement speed and evasion during the night. The stats were so good that our boy decided to equip it immediately. The only thing he wanted now was a better pair of pants, since he only had the beginner ones. Meanwhile, the people from Korea were preparing to challenge the dungeon once more and go even further. 12 minutes later, our boy found another one of the bosses, which turned him into a block of ice with one attack. With him immobilized, the creature approached to finish him off. One attack broke the ice and dealt him a bit of damage. Luckily, he had plenty of potions and health, and with that, he landed another blow on the boss's head. This time, he got a sword, a mantle, and a cloak. That was an ice set that allowed him to use the freezing shout skill. He didn't get the pants, but he got what he wanted most. He was the first person to defeat all the bosses and receive the title of Tiger Hunter, or an increase in stats by 10%. The system asked if he wanted to show his name on the ranking board. He said no, and with that, the announcement was made with his nickname as Anonymous. He could only challenge that place again in 30 minutes, so he decided to do other things in the meantime. However, as soon as he left the cavern, it was crowded with people outside. The people recognized him as the anonymous guy from the tower and were impressed to see he was wearing blue-tier gear. He didn't want to talk to anyone, so he took off running. The people said to ignore him and focus on the mission. When he arrived, he decided to take a look at the rankings. Apparently, it wasn't shown to the entire server, but only updated at the entrance. They knew that the Three Saints Guild had taken 46 minutes and that they were still fighting the last boss. Finally, they finished everything in 47 minutes and people were annoyed that this other server was so arrogant. But then, someone shared that the first place spot was actually held by an anonymous player. Obviously, everyone was wondering who that guy was, and others said it must be a lie, since there was no video from the blonde guy who shared the information. He knew the anonymous player would be back in 30 minutes, and at that moment, Ling Chi grabbed her friend and said they had to see this person. When our guy arrived, everyone was impressed with his blue gear, and at that moment, Ling Chi thanked him, saying he had truly protected the dignity of their server. However, our guy is a man of few words and just told everyone to move aside. The followers obeyed, even making a path for him. Lewin wanted to avoid drawing attention, but he really needed some pants, so he had to keep farming, and everyone was curious to know what his next time would be. At that moment, he entered the dungeon again and started clearing it much faster, since he now had experience. Ling Chi was confident, but her friends said that people from other guilds would want to break that record once again. The guys finished, and this time, they did it in 39 minutes. However, Lewin didn't care at all. Since he had progressed extremely quickly, he found the final secret boss of that place. While everyone was worried about breaking records, he was more concerned with getting some pants, and finally, the damn item dropped. The most interesting part is that this time there were some purple rank materials. The system wanted to register the record, but he didn't care. He was more interested in the pants, which had the ability to inflict burns on enemies. Additionally, the purple item wasn't a material, but a two-handed sword, and it had an effect that created attack combos. The item was so strong that it practically doubled his stats. Outside, people realized that 40 minutes had already passed and they were sure that the guy hadn't broken the record. However, the ranking didn't account for hidden bosses and he had actually done it in 38 minutes. So, the streamer got very excited, saying that he was truly incredible. Our guy came out changed, now looking just like Guts from Berserk with that cape over his face. What he didn't expect was to find an even bigger legion waiting for him outside. The guy emerged to a cheering crowd, and obviously, everyone was saying that he was impressive. Ling Chi was circling him, saying she wanted to get a look at his sword. Our guy, being humble, said it was fine, that he would show his greatsword to everyone. With that, he tossed it into the air, and people were stunned upon seeing its stats. Then, he already started to leave, saying that in half an hour he would be back to break the record. Again, Ling Qi was motivated to wait for his return, and he asked her why she didn't use that time to get stronger. Once again, our guy was wiping out the creatures in that place, and his time had already dropped to 31 minutes. As always, he remained anonymous so that no one from other servers would know who he was. He wanted more bosses, but he realized that was just being greedy. Obviously, the girls were still outside, excited because he had broken another record. 40 minutes later, he had come out of the dungeon in 10 minutes, and Ling Qi asked if he had died. Everyone thought he had made some kind of mistake and had been eliminated. However, Ling Qi decided to take a look. The rankings, as she didn't usually fail like that, and at that moment, she was stunned. Lewin had finished in 9 minutes and 32 seconds. The Korean players couldn't believe it, and everyone knew that this record was unbeatable. Lewin was the only one who wasn't very excited, because he wanted to kill more secret bosses. He left, disheartened, with everyone wondering why he wasn't happy. He saw that it was getting dark, and that it was also time to sell the gear he had received. However, it was then that the server announced there would be double experience for 24 hours. He decided to sell the weaker gear, but the problem was selling the level 15 blue-tier items. He decided to wait until tomorrow, since by then, players would be at that level and would understand their value. Besides, there were a ton of people who needed the materials he had obtained, and as soon as he listed a set of 7, it sold instantly. He hadn't imagined that those items would sell so easily and started listing everything. In just a few minutes, he earned another 500,000 coins. Now that he realized how much money he was making, he decided to change his plans and was already back in the dungeon killing mobs. That tiger's cavern really was the perfect spot. Suddenly, he gets a call. It was the guy who saved him at the brokerage firm, who offered to pay double the price, but only if he sold exclusively to them. Furthermore, he informed him that his identity seemed to have been leaked and asked if he wanted help hiding. He knows that with the amount of money he's making, his and his sister's lives could be at risk, so he asked for a place to hide, and Jinhai said that was fine. He took off his helmet, and the guy next to him commented that no matter how strong Lewin is, they would be in trouble when the servers merged. Jinhai agreed and said that the kid really was their only hope and that they would have to depend on him. Anyway, the next day our boy woke up and had already earned 2.34 million from the total sales. Meanwhile, that group from Korea was gathering. Their plan was to prevent Lewin from entering the tiger's cavern, so they would camp the entrance. He organized a plan with the summoners on how they would do it, and people got excited, since no matter how strong he was, they were a large group. With that, he made an announcement and called on the rest of the server to participate. Obviously, people weren't happy with one person monopolizing everything, so they agreed. Others were saying that no one could be that strong and hide their name, so they had to find out who he was. With that, all the guilds agreed to participate. However, Lewin was farming in another region and was already tired. He knew there were a ton of people waiting for him at the cavern, so it was obvious he wouldn't go there. He decided to leave his creatures farming in the forest while he rested nearby. In front of the cavern, everyone was waiting for the guy, but he didn't show up. The leader commented that in the end, their plan had worked since the guy wasn't leveling up. Then, the players from the Korean server started causing a ruckus. Lin Qi commented that this was happening everywhere and that no one else could level up. At that moment, she was almost hit from behind, or rather, she was caught by surprise because she did take the hit and realized she wouldn't be able to farm either. Oh my god, the server's leader had brought 400,000 players to help. Napoleon would feel insignificant in that war, and at home, Ling Qi was wondering why he wasn't helping anyone. Our boy was actually asleep and had just woken up. That's when he saw he had a bunch of messages in his system and found out that his entire server was under attack. At that moment, he also got a call from his sister. He asked what had happened, and she told him that she had also been ganked by players from another server and couldn't farm. She wanted to take advantage of the double experience event, but there were no free spots left. Our boy told her he would talk to his friend to sort all that out and get her some gear too. However, his sister told him it was impossible. As soon as she respawned, the guys would kill her again, and she couldn't even leave the area. Looney just told her to send him her exact position, and that he would send his friend, and he warned her that those bastards would pay the price. The guys mentioned to the leader of the attack that someone was coming, but he was confident. It was our boy's guild, commanded by his 3 great friends who had helped him enormously. However, they soon realized they didn't stand much of a chance either. But Lang Nu didn't want to give up, because she was sure our boy would show up, and there he was, saying he was going to have to sort this out. As soon as they saw him approach, everyone got stirred up, and the leader was already trembling and saying that this loon guy had arrived. He ordered the entire guild to attack him, saying that with so many of them, there was no way he could win. However, in a move worthy of Sword Art Online, no one could deal more than 1 point of damage to him. Our boy just stood there, saying nothing, until people started to wonder what was going on. His friends on the team couldn't believe he had so much defense, and the leader wondered if that was the difference made by someone who had divine beasts. But Lewin was tired of the situation and said it was time for them to pay for invading his server and unleashed a sequence of slashes, wiping out the leader's guild in a second. Almost everyone was on the ground and didn't know what to do. However, Lewin just passed by with a slash, warning them that they wouldn't have time to formulate any plan. Now, the girls were happy, saying that the server had been saved once again. He told everyone to gather all the gear that had dropped in one place. They were confused and wanted to keep it for themselves because they had lost some of what they had, but he said they were going to set a trap to get real revenge. The guy said that if that was the case, they would help, and he thanked them. Meanwhile, his sister was lying on the ground, unable to resurrect, until, of course, he came over and eliminated everyone nearby. She recognized him as the guy from before, but now he was even stronger. Lewin just told her she could keep all the items that those guys had dropped, as that would pay for what she had lost. She asked him if he was really her brother's friend, and he replied that he was, and told her to thank him later. And now it was time for him to go back to the entrance of that dungeon. When he got there, people had made a pile with all the items that had dropped. He even drew his sword from his back and told them to notify all the other servers and foreign players that there was a pile of items there for them. Obviously, people thought it was an exaggeration because there were enough items to equip an entire server. However, Lynchie said it was a great idea to truly see the power of those guys, so she decided to start her own live stream and showed off all the items, telling them to come and get them. The moment people saw the footage, they recognized the sword as Luchin's, and a short time later, they finally started arriving. She turned to the protagonist and told him it was his turn. He just told everyone to take the items and leave the area to avoid any risks, and with that, he stepped forward, saying he was going to kill the bastards who had ruined his server. At that moment, the guys went to attack him, but this time he was going to use everything he had. Easily, the guys were being annihilated, and from above, the leader of the Korean server saw that he didn't stand a chance, but Luchin wanted to know why they were there to ruin a double experience event. The guy replied that he was only so arrogant because he had the attributes of the divine beast. Obviously, Luchin wasn't strong because of that, but he thought it was a good lie, and the guy said that no matter how many he killed, their server would still be stronger. Since they were interrupting the event, Luchin told them they'd better compensate his entire server or they would have to pay the price. The guys replied that he was an idiot if he really thought they would apologize. So, our protagonist told them that in 5 days he was sure they would apologize, and he killed them, saying they would soon understand. As soon as people returned to the game, items were dropping to the ground, and the girls were impressed. But he said things weren't over yet and that he had matters to settle. Back at home, he decided to settle the score with them once and for all. The next day, 10 hours later, he invaded those guys' server to get his revenge. He knew that the Lost Garden of Eden was around there and that the event was going to happen. With that, he located the same pillar on that server and, at that moment, activated the event, and everyone was notified about the invasion. It was exactly the same thing that had happened on his server. They would have to destroy the 8 pillars and the entire server would participate. The people had no idea that he was actually the one who activated this event, and they were eager to receive a divine beast. However, Luchin would stand near the pillar and wouldn't let absolutely anyone complete the quest. With no one to guide the players, they were confused, trying to find where this Lost Garden quest began. Until, after much searching, they found some wolves and the leader said to turn on the live streams, as they had to show the world how they would get that divine beast. On the protagonist's server, the girls were worried that those guys would become stronger. Everyone was excited, saying they would soon return for revenge. However, one of them asked why there seemed to be someone in front of the pillar, and then Luchin announced that to participate in this quest, they would have to get through him first. Obviously, everyone recognized him as the anonymous player and asked why he was there, but the leader said they didn't need to be afraid, as the fog in that place would corrode their equipment, and with that everyone rushed him, saying he didn't stand a chance. The poor fools had no idea that in reality, as that mist strengthened the creatures, he was becoming even stronger. People didn't understand why the damage seemed to have doubled, and the leader tried to insist, saying that no one should fall back, but the players were being annihilated. The girls in the group were impressed, saying the boss was incredible. An hour had passed and he was still there alone, wiping everyone out. The leader brought a guy forward and seemed to want to negotiate. However, Luchin said that the time wasn't right yet. The guy was confused, but Luchin said he would only negotiate later, and with that, the guy retreated, saying he would be back. Our boy left his dragon there and told it to let him know if anything happened. Now everything was very easy, since the creatures had already taken over half the server, and the mist just kept getting thicker. The main city itself was in a dense fog and no one could farm at that moment. The officials from that server's guild came and asked him to stop. However, Lewin told them the time wasn't right yet. The leader told him to stop being a sore winner and get it over with, but Len just replied that they felt no shame when they ganged up to kill everyone in his region. The president of the largest guild there asked him what he wanted, and our boy just told them to get lost. The people didn't have many options and decided to see if they could gather a group to take him down, and with that, Ling Chi started a live stream with the leaders of that server, who apologized, saying they would never do something like that again. In addition to handing over a list of items our boy had requested in the meeting, the guys were devastated, not knowing how to put an end to it. With that, their leader went to apologize. Lewin informed them that the only apology he would accept was the 4 divine beasts from that place. The guy wanted to negotiate, but he said he wouldn't discuss it. Then he called his own group from the server. He would help them collect the divine beasts. After getting everything, the people celebrated that he was finally leaving. Our boy woke up at home, exhausted, since for those 2 days he had been playing non-stop. His left leg was almost at 100%, but his right still needed a few more levels. If that was the case, the only solution was to go back to the game and farm some more. Since he had accumulated a lot of points from the dungeon and this whole mess, he decided to do the most important thing: upgrade the Legion's order, which allowed him to have more creatures. Not only could he now summon one more, but all the others would also become 25% stronger, and he took the opportunity to equip everyone with the sets that were cheap on the other server. After 9 dungeons, it was time to start selling the rare items he had been accumulating, as people were starting to need them. He had more than 42 swords and decided, as usual, to hold an auction, since that's the way to get more profit. He used the guild's name to make a massive announcement about the entire sale that was going to take place, and the people wanted to know if he was going to sell that dual sword he always used. That night, he announced the start of one of his famous auctions, and as always, the value shot up quickly for an extremely rare cape he had acquired. It sold for 81,001, and along with another cloak, it sold for 100,000. So, he decided to take advantage of the crowd's excitement to sell the sword he was using. People already figured the price would be absurd, and in the blink of an eye, it was already selling for 210,000. After a good while, he had finally sold everything, and with all the items he got from the other server and everything he had farmed in the dungeons, he made a total of $2 million. The guy is like Neymar now. However, the most important thing of all was that his leg had finally healed. He immediately wanted to buy a new house for his sister and show her how much he had recovered. He thought it was wild that she was working every day, while he was about to buy her a house. A girl was trying to sell some houses, but an old man told her they were too expensive. The other saleswomen were laughing at her, saying that she always tried to use her looks but never sold anything, until our guy arrived and she was looking all sad. The others saw him and thought he looked poor, so you know what's about to happen. She approached him and asked what kind of house he was interested in. Our show-off wanted a villa right away and recognized that she was a schoolmate named Sobi. She said she would show him the house plans, but he said he wanted to see them in person. She asked if his car was outside, and he said he didn't even have a car. The women started to laugh, wondering how it was possible that someone without a car would want to buy a villa like that. However, the girl said he could get on her scooter. On the way, he revealed that he was Luchin. She said she had heard that he was in a wheelchair, but he said he was better now. A little later, she thanked him for buying the house and asked if he liked any games. He said he played Talon Perrin and that maybe they would run into each other there. Wow, that house purchase was so fast that he's already back to farming. Since he had arrived in a new region, he went out to kill the 1,000 Biichi. In the distance, he located a gigantic gate that seemed to lead to another map. In front of it was the soul of a girl, saying she was miserable and needed help. He asked her what the challenge was, and she said that only one person could participate. His mission was to cleanse 500 souls beyond that gate, and the reward was the ancestral heart he needed for a mission from the very beginning. Since it was a solo mission, it was perfect for him. As soon as he entered, he saw that there were several level 22 spirits. However, that would only be a challenge for someone else. The only problem was their sheer numbers and their attacks, which used mana, dealt a lot of damage. Even killing the first 2 creatures wasn't easy, but as always, he was patient. If he could kill 2, he could kill 500. He waited for the souls to respawn, and as soon as the creatures appeared, he jumped back into combat. 10 hours later, he had finally finished the mission. He received the ancestral heart and immediately wanted to use it. However, the system told him he would have to remove his human skin to activate it. So, he turned back into a wolf and the girl got scared seeing his deformity, but he just ignored her and activated the item. His character had advanced to 5-star quality and now had a 500% boost to all attributes. He got excited immediately, wanting to know if there were more quests in that region. He told the girl to stop crying and tell him what else there was to do in that place. She didn't want to tell him because she said he was too ugly, so he turned back into a human, and she told him he would have to kill 3,000 resurrected spirits, considering he had to kill 2 at a time. He got scared by how long it would take, but he had no other choice, so he said he would do it. After all, he was getting the ancestral items he needed. After killing over 1,000 liches, he obtained their talent, which reduced the defense of those nearby by 15%, and he moved on to hunt many more. With this talent, he could now also attack from a distance, which made him more efficient. However, it still took him 3 days to complete the quest. He was a bit bummed because that place didn't drop any gear, so the only thing he was doing there was leveling up. That's when he noticed a strange structure nearby and wondered why there seemed to be so many monsters there. Amidst several rocks, there was a legion of soldiers. It was a bunch of those beings gathered around a purple orb, and they seemed to be participating in some kind of cult. In front of all of them was a level 27 boss called the Vanguard Leader. At that moment, Luchin feared the game would force him to fight that thing. The creature summoned the god of the undead and asked him to accept the sacrifice, and then it slammed its sword into the ground. Everyone's aura began to glow. The boss started to vanish along with all the creatures. He decided not to get involved in that, went back to the girl, and told her he had finished the quest. The werewolf bloodline advanced once more. Also, with the tiger's talent, he could now deal critical damage. He asked the girl if she needed more help, but she said she had already asked for too much. The eager Luchin told her it was no problem, she just had to ask. For him, running into danger was his favorite activity. The quest he received was to stop the summoning that was taking place. He had to steal 5,000 mana points that were being generated in that formation, and for that, he would receive 10 pills that would increase his mana by 10,000. Since this was a stat he needed to improve, he obviously went. Immediately, he saw the formation and noticed that the dark boss hadn't been summoned, so he approached the center and began to cultivate, which allowed him to steal mana. The problem was that the boss had gone out for a walk and was now returning. The girl started praying that the boss wouldn't notice he was there stealing mana. Suddenly, as the boss got closer, its sword glowed. It sensed something was wrong and began to search for what was happening. Our boy had already stolen a good amount of mana and had fled. With that, he went to talk to the girl and asked for another quest. That's when she asked him to kill the boss named Cannabis. That was already too much, and he told her to find someone else. But she explained that, since he had stolen the mana from that place, the creature now had only 1/10 of its strength. When he killed the boss, the gate to Ragnar would open, which is the dungeon with a great quest. He remembered that the quest he had to do actually included this Ragnar quest, and he said it was fine, he would accept it. The reward was to receive the ghost pet Xiao Ming, which was of purple quality. Since it was a server unique, he figured it would be worth it, a lot. Apparently, the girl was going to help him in the fight, so he asked what skills she had, but before she could answer, she had already flown off. He decided that since he had no other choice, he would have to follow her. There, in the middle, was a red ball of energy. He asked if that activated the formation, but she told him not to touch it. He asked why, and she wanted to know if he wasn't familiar with divine orbs. It contained an immense amount of power, and if he touched it, he would be killed instantly. He said that the priority, then, would be to kill this cannabis creature. For the moment, the knight was just resting there. He told the girl to get its attention so he could strike, but she warned that if she took a single hit, she would be destroyed. He then asked what she was even there for. She replied that the boss was 10 times weaker, and she was even weaker than that. Chen said he understood, and that he would only do it because he stood to gain a lot, and at that moment, he lunged at the creature. He unleashed a flurry of attacks that dealt 1,600 damage. Considering the creature had 30,000 health, it should be pretty easy. However, suddenly the creature began to rise. The girl told him to be careful because it was going to use a counterattack technique. Our boy got excited, because if the creature had that skill, it meant he could get it too, and he lunged toward it, saying he would end this now. But the boss unleashed the slash it had prepared. Our boy narrowly dodged it, and if he had taken that hit, his health would have dropped to 0. He took advantage of that the time the boss was recovering to deal a bit more damage. Meanwhile, the girl was giving him tips on the skills the boss was about to use. He was impressed that she actually knew all of its fighting patterns, and just then, the boss raised its sword to end it all. She warned him that the only option was to run. They both had to make it back to the valley's entrance or die there. The explosion swept across the entire area, and Chen thanked her for being right once again. What he wondered was how other people could possibly beat that. 8 minutes passed, and he was still dodging attacks, unable to finish the fight. Just then, the girl opened her arms and emitted a golden light. All the energy he had expended seemed to be recovering, and he lunged forward to deliver a final attack. With a tiger slash, he struck the boss. Finally, the boss fell to the ground. Cannabis had been defeated, and he received a mystic rank technique called Rain Sword Conversion. Additionally, he obtained the key to the Gate of the Dead. The girl appeared and thanked him for everything he had done and asked if she could stay with him. Our boy agreed and said that was fine, and he received the unique purple deity pet, Xiaomin. He didn't expect her to be the boss and asked to see her stats. Her greatest advantage was invincibility. As a spirit, no one could attack her, and she could also possess certain bodies and grant buffs. He then asked what the key was for. She explained that it was for a level 50 dungeon that was nearby. He said that if it was level 50, he obviously couldn't clear it, and asked what the fragment was used for. She explained that those dungeon fragments could be synthesized into other essences. A while later, he was back at his house, and his inventory was full of items. Plus, he had already reached level 19. Meanwhile, in the city, Lennon was fighting against the former rank 1 player. She dodged an attack and punched him in the face. The crowd was impressed by how much she had improved. The guy said she wasn't half bad, but that he was tired of playing around, and with that, he landed a blow right in her midsection. He didn't hold back and launched a combo of attacks to see if he could finish her off. Len was defeated, and he apologized, but said she was still trash and warned that this fight proved that her guild was truly terrible. Len replied that it was fine for him to call her trash, but why was he dragging her whole team into it? The guy said it was because he was the leader of his guild, and she was the leader of hers. She replied that she would never tarnish her guild's honor, and would leave if that were the case. The guys taunted her, saying they wanted to see her quit. She apologized to her friends, saying she didn't want everyone to be embarrassed because of her. But just then, someone appeared and asked when he had given her permission to leave. Obviously, this scoundrel wasn't going to let one of his own leave the guild. Everyone was surprised because they hadn't seen him in a long time. He asked if they were bothering the poor girl, and she apologized for embarrassing everyone, but now he was in a good mood and said it was his fault, so he would fix it. The former rank 1 player said that today they would either finish off the protagonist or they would leave this server. He warned that the situation was very different now and that everyone had gotten stronger. Lewin said he would also leave if he lost and asked where they wanted to fight right then and there. Everyone was curious to see who would be leaving the server, as the two guilds faced off in front of the city, and everyone commented that the protagonist's guild didn't have many people. The enemy leader opened his arms and said that he would let anyone who wanted to leave go right now. But Lewin motivated everyone, saying he wouldn't give up. His friend told the protagonist they would do their best, but our boy just told them not to worry. He was going to make it clear that no one should mess with his guild. The crowd couldn't believe he was going to face them all alone. They angrily charged at him to finish him off, but what they didn't know, obviously, was that Lewin was much stronger now. After the spirit quest, people watched the fight from a distance, a little unsure if he would actually win. The enemy leader said that today our boy would disappear from the server, but our protagonist just replied that it was impossible and unleashed a double slash with his swords. It was an area of effect attack and dealt more than 1 point of damage to everyone in its range. The enemy leader had never seen such a powerful hit and wondered how it was possible for someone to deal so much damage to everyone at once. But our boy didn't stop and started wiping out the enemy guild before their leader could even do anything. All the members of his guild were already on the ground, and the next second, he fell too. The crowd didn't know Lewin had such a powerful area of effect skill, and the boy was relentless, hitting the bodies to make sure they all died twice. He just found it strange that no one from his guild seemed to be cheering him on, but the truth was, they were just stunned, wondering if this was really possible or if he was using some kind of cheat, some kind of hack. At least one thing was for sure, no one would want to face his guild again. Then he thought he knew how to leave an even clearer message and headed to that same tower where he had last stopped on the 5th floor. He easily passed through the first few floors and this time decided to go as far as possible so he wouldn't have to return. He completed the first few floors in less than 10 seconds, and Ling Chi commented that he reached the 5th floor in under 13. People were worried if he could really get past the 15th floor. However, Len was so sure of his ability that she was willing to make a bet on him. On the 12th floor, it was the first time he didn't kill the enemies in a single hit, and a short time later he finally reached the dreaded 15th floor. Len's friend said that everyone suspected he was using some kind of cheat, but the smitten girl insisted it was impossible, that the guy was just very talented. A second later, he was already on the 16th floor and they celebrated, knowing that no one would attack their guild anymore. However, now people wanted to know when he would actually stop, as he was already on the 17th floor and the next second he was on the 19th, reached the 20th and killed another enemy with ease. However, he decided to pretend he was having difficulties and left the tower. People were impressed, thinking that the 20th floor must have something truly terrifying. At that very moment, he decided to go do the guild challenge. It was the only way to get ascension crystals, and he knew that until level 100, no one else could do it. People were already giving up on the idea of ever trying to be stronger than him. A while later, Len was thanking our guy. He said they didn't need to worry, that as a leader he would help everyone. He would only keep the spirits and distribute the rest. Len wanted to know why he was helping so many people. He said she shouldn't worry about it and should focus on improving her magic. He asked her to send him a friend request and told her that if anyone ever hurt her, she just had to call him. She became very happy that the leader hadn't forgotten about her. The problem for him now was that he was at a very high level and didn't know where to farm. Meanwhile, everyone was gathering in front of the underground cavern, where people were trying to organize some groups to do the dungeon, but he decided to go in alone and see if there was anything secret in there. The creatures were extremely easy. Even the level 23 boss was no challenge. It would really only be worth it if he found something secret like in the previous dungeon. When you do things too quickly, a secret part unlocks, and with that he received a warning that the Abyssal Zombie King was approaching. 5 minutes later, the ground began to crack and the creature emerged from beneath him. It was a level 30 diamond rank boss. Lu Chen took 4,000 damage to the chest, was also blinded for 3 seconds, and lost physical defense and movement speed, and also lost 3% of his max health per second for 10 seconds. He was now scared by the strength of that boss. If it continued like this, he would have no way to beat it. He managed to dodge that attack and realized that in 4 hits he would be dead. However, he wasn't afraid, as the boss was relatively slow and he continued to attack it while dodging. The problem was that the boss had a lot of defense and HP, and when he took a bit of its health, the creature, it dove back into the ground. Lewin started to wonder if he would really die in that dungeon, and everyone received a notification that this area was temporarily paused until someone finished off the secret boss. The outcome of that fight would determine if they would have access to level 2 of this place. His sister was annoyed, because she was about to reach the boss and now she would be kicked out. Her friend told her it wasn't a problem, since it would unlock level 2. However, she didn't care and wanted to confront the shameless person who was ruining her progress, until her friend commented, obviously, that there was only one person on the server who would go against that boss alone. She asked if it was that guy, Nameless. Apparently, she didn't know that the guy who helped her was actually Nameless himself. Thanks to that incredible mask he wore in battle, Lewin was hitting the ground, but he couldn't manage to damage the boss. Even with the invisibility granted by the ghost, he couldn't locate the creature. Until, suddenly, the boss emerged from the ground in front of him. Since he was invisible, obviously, the boss couldn't know where he was. He took the opportunity to attack from behind and land some blows on the back of its neck. He did this for 30 minutes straight, until the creature was finally defeated. He obtained a zombie mask, in addition to several items, from the dungeon. He also got something very interesting, a recruitment order from that dungeon, which gave him the qualification to recruit a zombie king, in addition to the mask that reduced energy and movement speed, and the key he so desired, which granted access to the second level of that dungeon. At that moment, he activated the key, and everyone was impressed. This meant that the entire server could level up faster. As soon as our boy came out, he was still invisible, but his older sister was standing there. Curious, he took a look at his sister and saw that her gear was improving quite a bit. Apparently, she had learned to play well. He wanted to know what her level was and how strong she was, so he gave her a little tap just to see how much damage it would do. However, it caused a lot of damage due to the combos and filled her with poison. She started to walk, and he told her to stay still or the poison would only increase the damage, but unfortunately, she fell to the ground. The boy was in shock, as he had accidentally killed his own sister. Her friend, completely confused, asked who had attacked the poor girl. He didn't want to reveal it was him and was just thankful that no items had dropped. Then, he headed to another mountain. The key allowed him to open the next dungeon wherever he wanted, so he chose a slightly more isolated spot, and upon activating the item, a golden light ascended. This way, he made sure to be the first to enter that place and complete it. However, strangely, there didn't seem to be any monsters inside. It was actually a kind of personal dungeon, of which he was the owner. He could set a price for other players to enter, in addition to deciding what monsters and items would be available. He realized it was a way to make money without even having to play. He started spending a large amount of coins to raise the dungeon to level 20, and moreover, he could also buy some creatures to make available to everyone. He organized the region, and it was time to open for business. Afterwards, some players who saw the laser beam headed to the location and found the gate. People were shocked to see it was a player-created dungeon, and strangely, you could only enter alone. Live streamers seized the opportunity to hype up the place and showed everyone the new dungeon, created by the famous I'm the Only Savage. Since he set the mobs at a good level, many people started to go there to farm, and as a result, he was making money. The secret to his dungeon was that it dropped a lot of items, but, however, the entry fee increased every time you went in. This made greedy players go again and again to get likes on their streams and help me make more great content like this. What did you guys think of this story? I really loved this story and adored it. I hope you guys like it too. Take care. Bros, oh,